Hey all, my name is Tommy Lisiak. I am the head of product here at Scout. Um, I have the lucky pleasure of presenting on how to use AI to win grants for the Scout webinar series that we've been doing all summer. If you haven't checked out any of our other webinars, it's all about grants, winning non-dilutive funding, and just a bunch of different updates about the industry and where Scout is coming to play. So today we're going to cover four different things. First, the grant writing problem and how AI can help, some of the pitfalls of using AI, and then how Scout can leverage AI, and then some Q&A towards the end. We have about 40 minutes today, so I'll try to cover everything as comprehensively as I can. And then at the end, if anyone has questions, happy to save some time to do that. So the grant writing problem. There's three big things to the grant writing problem. If you've been in the grant space for a while, or if you haven't been, the grant industry in the United States alone is in the billions and billions of dollars. Each federal agency provides money to people that are applying, and everyday people and businesses, whether you actually have a business or you have an idea, can apply for this funding. The hard part is because it's billions and billions of dollars, there's thousands and thousands of grants a year that you can be applying for. And so there's three big problems with that. One is finding the right grant. You can spend hours on different federal agency websites finding grants, and then actually have to spend even more time to evaluate them. And then on top of that, once you've evaluated it, you actually have to understand, all right, how do I make this apply to my business? Because there's a lot of grants out there that actually allow you to take your idea and shift it a little bit to fit the grant's needs. And so there's a lot of strategy behind actually finding a grant that could make sense. Maybe it doesn't directly align with what you're trying to do, but maybe you can adapt to it to get some funding and work through there's a solution to fulfill that grant and then continue on your way. Um, the second piece to that is that writing is time consuming. Um, on average, Scout has noticed that it takes about 200 hours for somebody to write a grant just by hand. Um, and that starts with establishing that narrative, as we talked about, but then actually executing and writing it. Um, After that, you've only written one grant. So you have 200 hours to write one grant that you may or may not get funding for. That you spend a lot of time and effort doing, and then at the end of the day, you know, to do it all over again, you have to spend another 200 hours, and people don't have time for that. That's why a lot of grants are won by big companies, because they have a whole team behind them that are just churning through grants, and it's really hard for innovators, founders like yourselves to go in and find and write a grant and try to get funding because you don't have 200 hours to do so. And then the other part of that is that these proposals are super repetitive. After you finish one, you have to do it all over and apply for a second one, add another 200 hours, and everything about that one might be 90% the same, but there's 10% you need to change. And the unfortunate part is in that 10% that you have to change, you are having to change every piece of the document you have. So it's not like you can just take stuff from one proposal and just drop it in another. You actually have to like rewrite that entire thing. And so those are three big things that the grant writing, I would say, are the big problems of grant writing, especially for small time founders, people that are just getting started and looking to get some additional funding. But luckily with AI, there's a lot of opportunity to try to solve a lot of those pieces. So for those that may not know a lot about the AI space, AI has technically been around for almost 70 years. But the AI we know today was launched in 2022 when ChatGPT was made available through OpenAI, through OpenAI's release. And this version of AI is what we call large language models, which essentially are very structured towards helping people write, research, automate tasks, and also can do code, can do math, and build full narratives and stories for people. This is great. And it's a massive technological advancement. These models can do everything from automating your email review and responses, but it can also write an entire strategy paper for you. what people don't understand is that AI isn't some super powered thing that is thinking all these crazy thoughts on its own and then turning them around. Um, what it's really doing is using advanced mathematics and prediction to process information and generate responses. The best way that I've seen it talked about is that it's like a very, very advanced version of autocomplete, like you see on your phone, right? So when you're texting a friend and you have little words show up about what might be the next word, that's essentially all that AI is actually doing, but in a very, very advanced and sophisticated manner. So that's why when you get requests, you get like a good answer back that's very relevant because it takes all this information, you know, poses it to the internet, gets and all the training data, turns it around, and then says, based on what the person asked, here's what I think is the most complete response that I can find. Just like when you're texting and you're going from one word to the other, the next word that they're recommending is based on training data and your own training data. And so that's why, as you know, you work more with one of these AIs out there, the better it actually can respond to you because it learns how you like to talk and what you like to hear, and it's also a problem of why AI is sometimes always very confirmation bias forward of like you think something, so it's going to think something because all it's trying to do is provide an autocomplete for you. And so I like to say, no, it's not alive. It's just really good at predicting what you're asking for in response. So talked a little bit about what it's really good at. Right. And so that's where like grant writing can really be a great spot because it's taking in all this data that you're providing it, helping you answer questions, helping you summarize information that it is learning. And that's why AI is really great use case for grant writing. And then the more training data it gets, the better it can do at that. And so thinking through those three big problems that we just talked about, finding a great grant, writing a grant, and the repetitive process of it, there's a few ways that AI can help on your own. No tool, just using ChatGPT, using Claude, using Gemini. Due to AI's unique abilities, AI can actually help you evaluate grants if you can set up your information correctly, right? So if you go to ChatGPT and say, "I have this business" or "I have this idea, I found this grant. Can you evaluate these two things for me to see if I have a good chance of winning?" Right? To do that, you do need to ask the right questions. You do need to properly evaluate your use case and provide the AI with the correct knowledge for it to evaluate. And that can be a super long step process and you may not have all the information or questions you need because evaluating if a grant's right for you also has a lot of expertise involved. At Scout, a lot of the customers we get will see a grant and think, "Oh, that's not relevant to me." But in reality, if you dig deeper and you think through your narrative, it can be. And so, if you use just ChatGPT or Claude and they look at your data and they look at the response, the AIs in their generalistic form may or may not be able to help you. But if you do know the great questions and you do know how to evaluate things, you absolutely can. Each year the U.S. government does over 2 million individual federal grants. There's a lot of stuff out there, and AI can help you streamline and find grants that may be relevant to you. But it's a lot to comb through, and it just again still takes time. Is it shorter than previous solutions? Right. Now you can go to grants.gov and use AI to like match different grants to you. Um, Much faster, but still there's a lot of content you need to provide to get those to get to where you actually need to be. And so while AI can help to get the best results, you still need solid domain experience in the grant industry. You still need some grant writing experience to be like, all right, how do I take my idea and then tailor it towards a grant? On the writing side, you can make massive strides here. As I mentioned before, it takes over 200 hours sometimes to write a single proposal. And with AI, you have a co-writer right next to you that can help write content for you. It can evaluate content for you. It can do a lot of the heavy lifting. And I like to say probably cut down 50 to 100 hours just by being like, all right, here's the grant I want to write. You give it to ChatGPT. You say, here's my content. Can you write a intro paragraph for me? And it'll do it. And it'll look pretty good and sound pretty good. And potentially could be tailored to the grant that you're writing. But again, to know if you're actually hitting the nail on the head, you still kind of need that experience. You still kind of need that um, writing narrative established before you even start the grant. And so, again, that if you know what you're doing and you've written grants before, the generic AI can help. It's still laborious with a lot of back and forth and conversations over time. But you can really cut down your time by just being like taking the grant, the solicitation, the PDF that you have, uploading it into ChatGPT, taking all your content, uploading it to ChatGPT, and then trying to maneuver your way around all the questions and answers and context, and then re-reviewing all the copy that ChatGPT writes, um, and gets it into a good spot, and then figuring out how to compile it. But there's a lot that goes into grant writing that is more than just finding what deliverables are available and then writing them. At Scout, we actually work, we work with clients to strategize, all right, which deliverables do we work on first? Mainly because deliverables lead off each other. You write one deliverable and then the next deliverable needs the content from the previous one. But if you don't have that knowledge, you can start with the wrong deliverable, write it, and then have to go do a research strategy and then go back and change that. There's just a lot that is still not supported by a generic LLM. But again, if you have that skill set, you have that experience, AI can help significantly with solving that problem for you. And then proposals are repetitive, right? So as we had talked about before, you finish one, say you used AI, you spent 50 to 100 hours doing that. Now you have to do it all over again. You have to go reevaluate the grants with ChatGPT. You have to, upload the solicitation, ask it to try to create a template for you for the proposal. You have to verify that it's correct. You then have to, submit the information again. And so the proposals will take some time, but half the time that it probably did as a generic writer by yourself. And that's great, right? You're still only at 50 to 100 hours of writing versus 200. So maybe you can get a proposal out once a week. And that's great. But unfortunately, you have to go back and redo all the narratives for that next proposal. You have to still think through all the exact same things you did before with ChatGPT to get where you need to go. And so, as you think about the repetitiveness, while it's repetitive and that's cool because you can start to adapt what you have, there's still a lot of work that goes into it where you can't just be like, all right, I wrote this once, now just apply it to this one, and ChatGPT can do a great job. Studies show that AI is really good at small tangible tasks, right? So back and forth, maybe a couple paragraphs, maybe a full page, but having it write 13 to 15 pages of content all at once poses a lot of issues. And so you can't just be like, here's my old proposal, here's my new grant, go rewrite this whole proposal for this new grant. What you'll see is that the content just won't be as good as you expect it to be and what you want it to be. And you'll end up spending as much, if not more time rewriting what ChatGPT, provided you with that proposal shift than just kind of starting from scratch. And that's just where it is right now, because advanced autocomplete, the more it's trying to predict, the less accurate it is. And so there's just a lot of nuance to leveraging AI in those generic models that you can't really know unless you have that domain expertise where you're looking at that document and you're being like, okay, nice, um, this actually is aligned with what I'm looking for and aligned with my grant. And it can get really hard and really cumbersome to do that. At Scout, what we recommend, and this is for all AI use, not just on our platform or the work we do, is trying to find the way to make AI provide content to the AI that's just enough for it to do its job, but not too much. And what I like to say there is, if you're working to write a grant using ChatGPT and you upload all your content, and then you go and upload a bunch of white papers that aren't yours, and then you go and upload a bunch of research documents that aren't yours, and then you ask it to write um, a paper and references and talk about your team and all of these things. The LLMs might look at all this documentation that you brought up and then start finding people's names that are repetitive that may not be part of your team, and then and then put it into the document. And so if John Doe is a researcher and a bunch of documents that you had and you're just using it as reference documents for your paper, the LLM might see John Doe, 50 different times in the document and be like, okay, John Doe must work for um, the company that I'm writing this grant for. And so then they'll include John Doe as part of the proposal, being like, John Doe is going to do this. And that won't work because John Doe doesn't work for your company. And so if you don't review it and you say, okay, John Doe's not part of this, and you submit it, and then the agencies come back and be like, who's John Doe? And you're like, oh, this person doesn't work for us, they're immediately going to cancel any chance of you of having funding. And so it's part of going back to that like trust but verify, but it's also important about like what you're providing to AI to ensure that it's getting a quality output, right? And so we say, don't give it too little because then it's going to try to force a bunch of predictive analysis of like, how do I fill this out? But don't give it too much because then it might make mistakes on what is real, what's not. And that's because if you ever used AI, you know that it can go wrong. Unlike traditional software that's deterministic, where it's like, if I click this button, I know exactly what's going to happen. With AI, you don't. 70% of the time, 80% of the time, you might get it right. But there's a 20% chance that it might predict incorrectly. Just like when you're typing on a phone and you're texting a friend and you see the three things that it's predicting, none of them are things you're going to use. Very, very similar concept. And so there's just a lot of nuance to it and a lot of issues that you need to pay a lot of attention to and you need to still focus on. And so, yes, AI can help you write a bunch. It can cut the time down by half if you know what you're doing, but it's what I've found through, the couple years I've been in this space now, is that the generic LLMs are very good when you have an expertise in that field. And so if you have an expertise in grant writing yourself, you can use AI very well to get what you need. If you don't have it and you're focused on your business or your innovation and you're just like, I'm trying to get additional funding, it might help, but it could also just be really hard because you're trying to learn and use a tool and then evaluate that tool and not even know if it's actually aligned with what agencies look for. And so a lot of help. There's also a couple other pitfalls that we see. First one I just kind of brought up was that distorted expectations. Right? That you can think, all right, I'll just upload this to ChatGPT, it'll write it, and I'm good. But again, it lacks a lot of nuance. It lacks a lot of compliance. Each agency requires or has like a required format. It has required layouts. It has required sections. And so if you don't get that correct, you will get immediately kicked out, and you won't. Even if your idea is brilliant, you still won't get it right. And ChatGPT, as you may know, has a very like it struggles a lot with those. Like the amount of times we've tested, don't put bullet points in my response or don't do this when you're asking to create completely new content. um it can get hard, and sometimes if you're not paying attention, you're not vigilant, it can completely derail, right? Imagine you writing something and being like, okay, this paper looks good, I'm going to submit it, and then you realize that it missed a bolding of a header on the third page because it was just predicting everything, and then it just kind of missed it. And you submitted it on the last day, and then you got denied, and now you have to wait for a new grant opportunity to open, or you need to wait for the solicitation period or the submission deadline to extend again. And so, the strategic framing is very important and something that the generic LLMs don't do a great job. Again, trust but verify, right? As many of you probably know, AIs have a constant issue with hallucinating and fabricating information. It's very easy to submit something that looks good and it looks polished, but then you go and it might not be resonate with those reviewers. It might not even be accurate. The reference, like AI will even present real references that like have links to nowhere or links to studies that don't actually reference that content because again, it's not deterministic, it's probabilistic, it's assuming what's going on. And so it's assuming that there's a reference out there, and this happens a lot, especially in the legal space, that we've seen where lawyers will ask it to find a case from the early 1900s, and it'll make a case up, and then if the lawyer doesn't go and verify that that case exists, they're whatever they're presenting in court will just get immediately thrown out. And then the last thing, as I talked about before, is that context really matters. So garbage in, garbage out. If you just throw everything to the AI and say, help me write this, you're actually going to get a worse quality output than if you do like you're a little bit more strategic with what the information you bringing in, right? So like you have to think about what grant you have, you have to think about the documents you want to provide that align to that grant. And you don't want to provide too much because then it might over assume, and you don't want to provide too little because then it'll make up too much stuff. And so well, super powerful tool. AI is not a silver bullet by itself. And when I say AI, I mean the generic chats out there. It can help. It can absolutely help. It can cut you down 50% of the time. But it's not perfect. And so talking a little bit more about how Scout leverages AI is kind of the second piece to this. So um, what we do at Scout, and if you're not familiar with it, is we help founders win by building an AI user experience that is designed specifically to be like your grant writing partner, so that you can focus on your startup, right? So we're helping founders find, write, review, and submit proposals with confidence. So going back to that grant writing problem, right? It is very hard to find grants. There's thousands that come out each year. Um, Millions and billions and dollars of funding available to you. Um, but going through it all is super time intensive. And so what we've done is provided a user experience where you can go build a project in our system, upload materials you have, right? Your innovation documents, a business strategy, a business model canvas, a pitch deck, whatever it is. We then use AI to parse out your information. We run it through the thousands of grants that we have in our system, and we actually created a model scoring for you to find the best matches for your specific project. We then take out key information about due dates, eligibility criteria for you so that you can be like, okay, this is for Native Americans, or this is specifically for women-owned businesses. We pull that information out for you so that when you're going through the grants, you're not spending hours clicking through PDFs and reading a bunch of summaries and then asking AI, does this make sense? What you're doing is looking at it, reading the summary, reading the eligibility criteria, reading the amount of funding, all on one page, and allowing you to make a quick decision on, does this one even make sense for me? Because you might end up spending 30, 40 minutes trying to evaluate a grant, and then on one line it says, this is only for people that live in this region of California or have this, this degree, or whatever the eligibility criteria is. And so we've taken that out. All you do is provide your project information and we do all the hard work. And then from there, what we've done is we've actually created high quality templates using AI and using our grant writing team to build compelling and like proposal winning solutions. And so, you find a grant you like, you evaluated it, you're eligible for it, and then you're like, okay, well, let's get started in writing. And what we actually did is we built the templates for you. But we not only did that, each template and each section is purposely designed to provide enough context to the AI to get a high quality output, and as well as make it compliant, right? So each section and each deliverable that you would be writing as a part of that proposal has vetted grant writers behind it that designed the system, so that that when I generate this draft, the document that I'm getting is completely compliant and is working. It hits all the things that the agency and reviewers are looking for, and that's based on years and years of experience. We think that this allows you to go from 0 to 1 in minutes. I've been able to write a full proposal in like less than an hour. And what we also do is we leverage multiple AIs based on their expertise, right? So we have a nugget of information is we found Claude does a really good job of writing scientific knowledge, right? So scientific papers, we've tailored specific sections of the documents to use Claude. And then we've also realized that ChatGPT does a better job with generic, company and team information. And so we actually use a different LLM to write different pieces of the document, and then we allow it to all be put together. On top of that, if you're using ChatGPT, you're taking that back and forth, and then you're having to go and copy it into different documents. But in our platform, you can go and be like, all right, I finished this section, I finished this section, I know what's needed next. And we built that strategy for you using the templates. In the next couple months, we're actually gonna be launching like collaborative feature. So you can go in and, if you have a team of writers, you can go in and comment, you can redline and directly in our system. But at least right now you can go in and track, and you can go in and both write, you just can't comment. What this is trying to solve is some of the problems that we've felt AI generic LLM chatbots aren't good at, right? Is keeping the state of like, what deliverables have I finished? but also ensuring that all the deliverables that are being generated using AI are compliant, accurate, and then the context that is needed is the perfect amount for what the LLMs can do. Right? We're not asking it to write an entire research strategy that's 15 pages. What we end up doing is breaking that research strategy down into like eight different sections with different storytelling required, so that when you build all of those together, it then creates a compelling narrative. But if you ask it to build all 15 at once, you're going to actually struggle to get a high quality proposal out. And so we've designed this to be easily trackable, accurate, and compliant, and with a tailor towards winning, because the people that we've worked with to build these templates has not only been grant writers for years, but they've also been like reviewers on the other side. They've reviewed thousands and thousands of proposals and scored them and been like, this works, this doesn't. And so these people know exactly what is approved and what's not. And that just hasn't been able to be translated into ChatGPT because and the generic LLM models, mainly just due to the fact that that's a human decision that's not very documented. It's, human reads it, they say this works, this doesn't, and then it gets submitted. But there's no reasoning, and then the proposals are never public because it's between the government and the business. And so the generic models don't have that knowledge base where they can say, here are all the proposals that have been submitted, here are all the proposals accepted, what's unique about the ones they accepted. And what we're building here at Scout is a learning model where we can say, here are the proposals that people have written, here are the proposals that have been accepted, what are the key things that I've learned, and then reuse that in our own AI to ensure that everyone that writes proposals has a higher chance of winning, based on the structure of the narrative, the storytelling that we're doing. And so we're tinkering this daily, we're adding new templates daily. But our goal is for people to be actually not just write a grant, but to win. And a lot of tools out there, especially in the grant writing space, they're just trying to get you to write a proposal. They're not, especially on the software side, but not actually really focused on writing it with AI, but also trying to find a way to successfully win it. And so once that's done, we're working through submitting with confidence. And I like to call this grant review with a human touch. Um, we are currently exploring the ability to use AI to not only produce the documents, but then once you've gone in and made your edits, change things here and there, added content, removed content, whatever it is, allowing the AI to go back through it and read and re-review what you've had to see if you've hit the criteria that our agency and our writers believe are high quality outputs that are going to put you in a great position to win. Not guaranteed, but in a better position than if you didn't use us at all. But I like to call it with a caveat with a human touch, because a lot of this is baked in. But we also know that, as I mentioned before, sometimes you still need a little bit of grant writing experience. And so what we've done is not only have we incorporated grant writing into our platform, but we also have a team of grant writers that will lend their hands to help you review your content as well. So you reach out and you're like, hey, I'd love to have you review my proposal before I submit it. Someone on our team is more than happy to do so. And so we're doing a little bit of grant review via AI, but also we also are so dedicated to having you all win and get funding that we're leveraging our human expertise that we have found to be super successful in collaborating. Because again, we don't think AI in its current state is a lot like able to create a proposal winning document by itself. Even with what we have so far, it still needs a human touch. And whether that's just you putting that human touch in or our team helping you finish out those drafts, we're here to help. And so we're aiming to improve as much of this as we can. But we also have a team here that is supporting our customers as best they can to ensure that your proposal and the writing you do in our platform is as successful as it can be. So here's a quick little demo. I can run you all through on how Scout works, and then we can jump into some Q&As.
I wrote this 15-page project description for my NSF SBIR Phase 1 application in less than 30 minutes. Here's how I did it in 5 easy steps. 1. I first log into Scout. 2. I hit New Project, and I put in my startup information to create a grant project. 3. I search for a grant opportunity, find the NSF SBIR Phase 1 template, and hit Write Grant. 4. I upload my already made company pitch and white paper into the platform, and then tailor my proposal to how I want it. 5. and then rinse and repeat for the other sections of the project description. And here are some other cool things we can do in the Scout platform. I can customize each part of the proposal based on which files I want Scout to analyze. Each section can also have its own focus. And finally, Scout has collaboration tools where I can write in it and even collaborate with my team members. Sign up for Scout today so you can lock in our discounted rate. Let's get your startup funded.
A little bit of a insight into the platform and how it works today. But even there, you can see, we've broken out matching for you. We've been able to, provide documents in that context where it's like, I want to use this file for this section. I want to use this file for this section, or I want you to tailor this section around something else. And so, we're working our way. We're a brand new company. Part of this webinar is trying to help people understand how AI can work with grants, but also, showcasing what we're trying to build ourselves. And so we can hop over into QA. But one of the last things we like to say is that if you do end up working with us, we prioritize security and privacy as much as we can. Working with AI is the wild, wild west, but we're going through SOC 2 compliance. We're actually very, very close to being done. Which is a gold standard in terms of security. We don't actually train our AI model and then you use your content into other pieces of other people's, right? We're just using it to understand narratives and things like that. And so that's a core focus of what we have, and I know it's a very big concern with a lot of people. And so we want to work with you to make sure you feel as comfortable as you can using our platform, and do everything we can to have you work and win non-dilutive funding with us. And if you have any questions after this webinar, and you're like, oh shoot, it would have been nice to know, or even strategies of how to use AI itself, right? Whether it's just like prompting with ChatGPT, or you talked about context, what does that mean, or how can you give me more examples of how that works? Like, more than happy to help people learn the space and what it's good at and what it still needs work on. I'm here to help answer questions. So even after this call, don't hesitate to email me directly.